Wow, that sun is bright. I figured I'd film this with the sun just blaring in my eyes. And that's quite advantageous, I think, because I can feel the little sun particles just going into my eye sockets and feeding them the nutrients they've been craving all day. Thank you for joining me in this field. I'm here for 3 reasons. Reason number 1. You're also here for 3 reasons. Reason number 1. My friend told me that we can use our brain and our mind, the powers of our mind, to rationally examine our fears that we've held since we were tiny little babies. And with the pure slicing edge of rational looking at it, we can actually dispel the fears. You've probably heard that before. You've maybe even thought that before. But to actually take a really deep-seated fear and dispel it, just by thinking about it and looking at it, I feel like that's pretty outrageous. So, when I looked inside the treasure box of my deepest held fears, the one that's the deepest down in there and the most ingrained is the fear of loneliness, the feeling of loneliness, the fear of being alone, something like that. Like not having the deep connection with another human being that in my past I have found to be the most satisfying experience I've ever had. And in this case, I'm specifically talking about romantic relationship, going deep with a woman, bonding our life together through living together, creating things together, spending hefty amounts of time in one another's company, really getting to know the other person, hearing the stories that are kept for, the things you learn about a person when you get way deeper in there. I have found that to be really quite delicious and also tumultuous and able to fuck up my life pretty profoundly as well. What do I mean by that? Just to take me down a road that is where I don't feel best supported in creating a life of my own, pursuing the passions that are most deeply held in my soul. So it's interesting that what life has shown me is that to have this thing that feels like it's the most satisfying, this connection with this person, but then to see how that often takes me away from the things that I solo am wanting to build and learn and bring to the world and discover within myself as well. So that's weird, right? It's like that almost feels like a cosmic joke. Like, can't we have it all? So what is this fear then? The fear, because I took my friend's advice and I sat down and I was like, well, okay, like what is this? And what came to me over time was that there are different ways of being with oneself. It's getting dark now. It goes behind the cloud and it gets really dark. I have to turn up the light in here. And then when the sun comes out and it's blaring again, we're going to have to turn the light back down. Isn't it wild that we can control the sun? different ways of being with oneself. When I was a little kid, my sister was quite a bit older, so I spent a decent amount of time just being like a kid solo playing in the dirt with rocks, sticks, action figures, making whole worlds, really entertaining myself to a high level. But as the youth turned into the adult, the being with oneself became corrupted and tainted with a whole milieu of like just weird judgments about it. That like it can't be as rich and juicy as an interaction. Lord, no. But that, as I was looking at the sphere, I was thinking I don't know, maybe it's not actually. Maybe like solo time hasn't been accessed quite properly in the adult years as it could, accessed as fully and robustly to satisfy lots of different things. So this is reason number one that we're out here. Technically, I'm alone in a field, but also, and there's a little mosquito. But also, you are here because you're watching this. And I can tell you're watching it. I can feel it. So, but I'm still here. Just me in a field with my thoughts and my words and the sky. But it feels different. It feels funner. Doesn't this feel fun? I think it's pretty fun. Okay. So that's reason number one, is to dispel the fears that being alone, because at different times in our life, we're meant to spend more time on our own. And Lord knows that interacting with other people can be the best. And when you fall in love with someone and just delight in the magic and the sound and color and fury of their just outpouring overflow of delicious character traits, it's a hell of a lot of fun. Yet, what the hell is inside of us that is also potentially really, really fun? And I think that is the piece that I have been missing somewhat. That my friend was pointing towards when I look into the fear. Because the fear is like, you can't be afraid of the mosquitoes. I listened to, sure they bite and then it'll be itchy and scratchy. But one of these like meditation dudes that I was into for a while, he was like, send out like an intention of like, hey, world of mosquitoes, I'm not here to mess up your gig. Please don't suck my blood. Let's coexist. And honestly, as I'm saying that, I think they're chilling out. But they're sentient creatures. They can feel a vibe. You know? And maybe they need a little blood. I mean, they do. The fun of being with ourselves, digging deep into the what's inside me. Because we're creative beings, and Dali is like who is Dali? And I thought that's like really stuck with me because he was a freaking weirdo. And he created some really cool art, and he was not like, I know who I am, but he was always like, I don't know what I am, who I am. And that kept him hungry to keep going and keep getting weirder and keep bringing to the society things that people really wanted. The sun came out again. So, like, I think, at least I thought, and I think that other people think, that, like, we're this container. I don't know actually if anybody thinks this, but, like, we're a container and, like, the limits are known and, like, there's a certain amount of stuff in there. And, we're growing and changing, but, like, the container is kind of staying the same size and shape. And, like, so therefore, I know who I am. And I like have these preferences, and these are the things I'm capable of. But the more I look at it, and the more I introspect, the more I don't even see much of a container at all. It's more like just like a satellite dish that can just point to different places in the sky and pick up just freaking alien sitcoms from all over the universe. Some of them are more helpful than others, but like there's no cap on that reservoir of like an interesting synchronicity from the last week was in two different instances people were talking about this thing of like an artist receives the thing. They don't like make it, but they receive it. And so like Michael Jackson was like, I need to get home because like I need to get my pad out and write down this idea or else Prince is going to get it. And then someone else was saying something very similar. And when these synchronicities happen, it's the universe tickling your chin and saying, come this way. But, Terence McKenna was like, where do the ideas come from? We don't even freaking know, which is pretty bonkers. Carl Jung, another one that's been coming in heavy in a lot of different synchronicities. The collective unconscious, which I think is kind of like when I hear that phrase, it sounds a little dry because it sounds like it's still like a collection of like stale water, but I think it's flowing like crazy, and probably there's like freaking gamma waves or whatever coming from the like outer space, hitting the planet and creating thoughts in our minds that are revolutionary and beautiful music and art and ideas. And anyway, so that feels like a pretty fun companion, I would say. Being with oneself, digging into the treasure trove of the collective unconscious. I guess I'm going to use that phrase because it's like pretty good. It's just like, I don't know, but it's the well. I feel like it's a well that you dig. You like buy a property on the side of a mountain and you are digging a well. It's like ancient. It's on a mountain in Japan. Ancient mountain village, just off in the wilderness, and you need to dig a well. But you're digging and then you start like finding stuff. At first you find some old pottery, and then you find things you don't understand. And you just keep digging and you keep finding weirder and weirder stuff. But ultimately, we're not meant to live in a sequestered off field. Like, I'm not meant to die in this field. I don't want to die in this field. I don't want to live forever in this field and not hug a person or, teach someone how to tie their shoes. I remember being a kid, someone teaching me how to tie my shoes. It was probably one of my parents. But, make like a little mnemonic device about the rabbit going around the thing to help the kid understand. I mean, I would like to help a kid understand someday how to tie shoes. If there's even shoelaces in the future. Okay. I think we've thoroughly talked about that one. Reason number 2, I actually didn't pre-make these reasons. I just said that there were 3. Praying to God that they come. No, I think that was it. I think there's just one reason. No, I'll give you more. Things are best in 3s. Speaking of Dali, I have a Dali tarot deck. Okay, here's reason number 2. No, that one's too complicated. And it doesn't explain why we're in the field. I'll tell you another inspiration for why we're in the field. So, there's this guy I met, and he makes some YouTube videos, and they are very soothing. And it's basically just him sitting there and talking. And it's very inspiring because his message is also just like bringing more awareness to how we're using social media. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about this at all. Okay. Here's the second reason we're in the field. I'm going to make it a little brighter too. Okay, I'm going to go back to the guy I was just talking about that I met once. I know that's very vague. But he basically like pointed to the fact that we can media, social media, this video you're watching right now, it can actually be really chill. And my nervous system, for the most part, really loves chill things. So like short content, stuff that's like highly edited, that's like super flashing in your face, going bonkers, like super fast. It's not for me really. And there's always been a desire for me to make content, put out something. But like, man, if I have to shoot this like 5 or 6 times, I'm not gonna lie, I started twice and deleted them. But this one, I'm going. Like, and you can tell, like there aren't any edits. We're just going full on. Hopefully it's chill. It's chilling out your nervous system. Like you're taking the time. Like, I don't know how long we're in. How long are we in? I can't even tell how long this video's been going. But like you're like, if you're still watching this, you are on a journey. But it's also chill. And we're also just in a field. And instead of you getting blasted with like commercials and things that are telling you that you're not enough and that you're not where you need to be, I'm here to say you're right where you need to be. And so am I. And that's why we're hanging out together. Is because we're a couple of people who know how to chill out and let this thing unfold. Because you could be watching something that is purportedly guaranteeing you to achieve something that you want to achieve. And I would actually say that this is also the same. But what it's helping you to achieve is just taking a moment. Do you think blowing at them is a good way to do it? And I'm not going to lie. the stakes aren't exceptionally high. Like, what? Someone's going to stop watching the video? Honestly, I might have stopped watching it too. Except actually, I wouldn't have. Because if I would have stopped, I would have stopped making the video. Which means you're still here with me, which is insane. I'm so proud of you. You've actually passed the test. Because I know at different points of the time you're like, honestly, I think this is probably boring. Or I don't get it, or whatever. But you kept and you pushed through, so now I'm going to give you the good stuff. Okay. I should just let him bite me. I think they do have diseases, I think. I have heard that. I mean, in a lot of ways, like. Okay. That was another test. I was still, because you're on the other end screaming. Get to the point. Because you know there's a point. Okay, it's reason number 3. Reason number 1 was using the mind, the weapons of the mind, as the tarot likes to call it, the swords of the mind, to cut through fears that are just irrational. Thing number 2 is that by watching this video, you are likely helping your nervous system relax. And honestly, this is the kind of content that I like these days. Is basically someone who has collected like a fair amount of wisdom. Now, I am going to just go ahead and say I do feel that I've collected some pretty tasty nuggets in my 40 years walking this earth mountain. And I like to sprinkle those nuggets. And so like just listening to someone just sprinkle their nuggets, I think is a lot of fun. It's a really just like offbeat way of making connections, and like that fires the connections in my brain. And also like they're not selling me anything. Like I am selling you something right now, and it's not this can of beverage. I am selling you a moment of time. I don't know. Actually, maybe I'm not selling you anything. What do I have to sell? Why are people selling things to each other? Honestly, like I don't fully understand how money exchange works. I feel like I come from a planet where like people just are giving things to each other all the time. I even read in a book once about my astrological north node. Now, I am very skeptical. I'm skeptical about astrology, except when I freaking read a book that's talking about my north node and it's like speaking straight to my soul. Right? Like, isn't that outrageous? I also am super into human design, which is a channeled methodology of basically like almost like personality typing, but it's not just your personality, it's your entire freaking everything about you, your physical form. It's time to turn up the sun. And in the North Node book, they were saying in a past life, I was like in the royal court, but it's not like I was a royal court person, but like my bills were being paid by the court, and I was just able to do charity. So throughout my life, I've had a very like just a charitable view of things. Of like, yeah, like I just want to give away everything and like just trust that it will return. And that's one of my life lessons that I'm working on is like in this time space reality, the things of value do need to be in a harmonious energy exchange, whether that's money. For example, I'm giving them my blood, but what the hell are they giving me? I mean, I do think that nature. Okay, I think this is the third thing. Have we gotten to the third thing yet? I can't even remember. Nature is this really like interesting thing of like energy exchange. If you just think about like a jungle, things are eating things. Things are always like eating things and like giving other things shelter. So like even though everything's eating everything, everything is still also like protecting everything and creating a stable platform for things to evolve. And like just nature is pretty bonkers. Again, going back to Terence McKenna, he would be like, for some reason, because there's the law of entropy, which means that everything is basically just going to just nonsense all the time. But life is this weird thing that scoots against it by creating further novelty or complexity over time, which the law of entropy, which is the law of thermodynamics, which you cannot argue with them. I'm pretty sure you can't argue with them. So he's like, what? This is a pretty outrageous thing that life is going against it. Like hardcore too, like billions of years of going against it to create crazier and crazier organisms and then humans and then whatever the hell kind of robots we're going to create. Which, you know, it's going to be complex. And there's also a conservation of the things that came before. So, like, back in the day, mitochondria were like cells on their own. And they were chilling and they were having their heyday. And then they got co-opted into our cells, but like they're still around. And they're still doing their thing. So I think as we create the robot kingdom, they're going to be like, yeah, like humans and nature are great. This is my optimism coming through. Let's cherish. Like, you know, the robots would be like, oh man, animals going extinct. I mean, maybe there's some amount of that that's needed, but like animals are cool. Like we should have all the different condors. Condor? Is that one of them? And it's just like different albino alligators, and like they're gonna Jurassic Park it, and they're gonna bring it all back, and just have a place where it can be. Because why not keep it? And humans, okay. Point number 3. I live by an airport. And honestly, I think it's probably been like a half hour, maybe even longer, that we've been sitting here. And that's the first plane that's come by. That is outrageous. They were like, there's a guy in a field, and the planes are going to disturb him. So let's hold traffic for 30 minutes. We can't guarantee longer than that, but we're going to give him 30 minutes. That's really nice of them. Okay. Okay. Point number 3. Because you hung in there, I'm going to tell you one of the greatest secrets of the universe that I've ever discovered. And it's this. Each human, and if you're watching this, I think you're probably human. But let's extend it too. Each entity, each conscious creation is unique. That well I was talking about earlier, we all draw upon it in different ways. We're all connected to it, but we all have a different kind of crystal way of refracting the stuff we're pulling through, and we bring it to the world in a unique way. And cultures and societies, a part of they hold things together in a nice way, but a part of what they do, and ours does for sure, is they're like, yeah, like you're unique. Like you need to not be so unique. You should live in this more of this cookie cutter thing so that you're predictable and you can just fit inside this thing that's being created a little bit better, because otherwise like it might get too wild and you might bring up too much radical sauce. You might bring too much radical sauce to the table, and the table might fall over and the whole meal could be destroyed. So while there is a place for that, a place for having a shared language, you know, we're all unique, but if you speak English, for example, I am speaking English, and so we can communicate, and that's great. You could even create your own language, though. You could create a light language, and you could say it to me, and I wouldn't know what you're saying. And that could be a bummer, because maybe you are trying to communicate something important, maybe ask me a question, but I can't understand what the hell you're saying. So, while there's a lot of usefulness for this like normalization, machinization of like, let's make everybody a cog in the thing so it's a machine that works. And you could argue who it's working for. But in that situation, there's also you and me. Beings which have never existed before and are weird. We're freaking weird if you think about it. Sure, we've all got livers, we've all got kidneys, most of us. But beyond that, like, we're doing our own thing. And through our conditioning, we're taught a lot of ways to look at the way that we're squirming through this life and to be like, yeah, that's not good. You should not squirm like that. You're a human being. You should put on a suit and a tie, and you should go to the hedge fund and hedge it up, fund it up. But maybe you're like, I don't want to go live inside of a hedge fund. I don't like hedging or funding. I want to create a new form of poetry that's made out of liquid silicone. Okay. So the third point I'm wanting to make here is that there's a journey. Jung calls it individuation. I just turned 40, and Jung said some interesting things about turning 40. He said that the first 40 years are research. I don't know if he said what comes after that. The first 40 years are research. What I take that to mean is that you get conditioned to, in a lot of ways, think that you are just like such a goddamn fuck up, and that you just can't get certain things right. Fuck, who knows? Maybe you can't get anything right, and that's why things are so difficult and confusing, and why you can't get your needs met in certain ways. But I think that's a part of the process where you're wiggling, and being a human can be just painful. But the story of telling yourself that your wiggle is causing yourself your pain, and that you should wiggle some different kind of way, I think eventually we learn to say, hey, I'm wiggling over here, and I'm going to support my wiggle by honoring it, respecting it, being curious about it, being like, well, why was I made to wiggle this way? Maybe there's a reason. I will, spoiler, there's a freaking reason why you are the way you are, why I am the way that I am, why we wiggle the way that we do. And it's an evolutionary process. I mean, when the, you know, freaking turtles got eyes, a bunch of turtles were like, like I shouldn't have eyes right now. I can see all this blinding, horrible light. But that was like the start of the turtle. You know what I'm saying? And so if that turtle throughout his whole life is being like, oh, I've got these eyes, like I'm just fucking everything up. Man. You know what I'm saying about the turtles and the eyes? I know that's not how evolution works. Just that one moment the turtles don't have eyes and then the next they do. But that's what it feels like to me. That's what it feels like. It feels like being incarnated in this human form is like frick, what's that quote from the guy? Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He wrote that. It's in that book, Fear and Loathing. The guy's like the mutant, this mutant character. He's too strange to live, too rare to die. I think there's a fair amount of us out there that are like, you know what? I'm made a bit different, and I don't get what I don't want to live in a hedge. I don't want to live in a hedge fund. I can't. And a lot of people around are like, you should live inside of a hedge fund. You should work there and you should put on a suit. So we can argue with ourselves. We should be like, you know what, really I should like figure out how to like get myself to work inside this hedge fund, you know? And then once I make that like hedge fund money and I got that like hedge fund respect, then like I'm gonna get my needs met and then I'm gonna have what I need. It don't work like that. It don't work like that one bit. I don't think, at least not for me. And if you're watching this and you've made it this far in your life and in this video, I don't think it works that way for you either. Which is why changing the inner dialogue, which is, for me in the past, very much was assessing and being like, well, you know, you did that real crappy and that you screwed up, and man, that person's like really upset. I'm pretty sure it's entirely your fault. I'm pretty sure everybody's bad mood is your fault. And everybody's disappointment about their lives is actually your fault. Very narcissistic, actually, but now that I'm at this phase in my life and have done a lot of work to rewrite the internal dialogue to be like, I just did that thing and it seemed to really upset that other person. Like, why did I do that? And it's okay that I did that. Maybe I owe that other person an apology. Maybe I don't. But at least having the self-respect to just be curious why. And to honor it and give it space. Give it some room to wiggle. Okay. This has been some of the best field work you've ever done. I'm proud of you. And we'll probably be back for more. Maybe at a different time of day. These skeeters, they are fierce.